All right. Well, just like I said earlier, Zoom is saying that I'm recording, so we'll take its word for it. Welcome to another episode of the Air Raid Attack Podcast. I'm your host, Michael. As always, listen to us on the Unhinged Sports Network every Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, and also, I guess, subscribe to our podcast. That's the word I'm looking for on iTunes, Google, iHeartRadio, all the good major podcast platforms. Today, we welcome back a good friend of mine. He's been on the show many times, and he's definitely back many more down the future. David is with us on today's episode. David, welcome back to the podcast. How are you, my brother?
Well, thanks, Michael. It's been good to be back, and it's been a while since we've done this. I mean, you and I have both gone on separate vacations, and life's been busy, but it's good to be back on the show and talking. What we like to do is just talk sports.
Definitely, indeed. Life's been busy. I know on my end, coming back the no, it was the 7th, I think, 4th or 5th of May, coming back from Phoenix, spent some time out there. Loved every moment out there, and then coming back to work, and it's been hectic since, but definitely glad to get you back on and talking sports because, boy, oh boy, we got a lot's happened since our last conversation.
Yeah, most definitely.
First things first, I know I love the link, the post that you shared to me on Facebook. The NBA. What's your personal thoughts? And I'll say mine. I know I told Dan on last night's episode, but it's currently being aired right now on the Unhinged Sports Network. But what do you think of the NBA's fans? I know mainly I believe it was Boston, but of fans throwing bottles, Russell Westbrook getting popcorn dumped on his head. I think a fan ran onto the court. I guess he didn't get very far, but before he's being tackled on the hardwood. What's your thoughts on this insane stuff? I know I saw a tweet I answered to. Someone posted, we just now got back into the arenas. Do we think we're going to be banned again from the arenas, so on and so forth? I mentioned if worse comes to worse, which would be more logic, but you never know, extending the tunnel in regards to an awning, just a structural thing where awnings pretty much you're leading to the court, so you're not, as we all know, many, many years ago with Detroit and Indiana, where fans and all the players started punching each other. Anyway, what's your thoughts on this unnecessary stuff that's being taking place towards the NBA players?
Well, I think of it as you take a soda pop can and you shake it up and then you open it, it's going to go everywhere. And for the last 15 months, this is the first time we've been people actually able to go to games with crowds in quite some time. I mean, there's been fans allowed at certain stadiums, but it's been limited capacity. And I think it's just people are pent up and they're just, they want to let out some excitement, but I think they're realizing that it's they're going overboard. And of course, alcohol impairs your judgment. So, I mean, if you were able to do like a BAC test on some of these fans, it'd probably be pretty high on all of them because no sober person would ever do what these fans are doing.
No, I agree. And I know some of the charges were big time. I know towards Kyrie Irving. I think the guy was charged. They got a felony, I think a battery, I think is what they ended up being. I don't know anything on the fan that dumped the popcorn on Russell Westbrook of the Washington Wizards. I don't know if anything happened really to the guy that ran onto the court, or at least attempted to run on the court before being tackled with the basketball goals at. But no, it's sad nonetheless. Not for sure. I'm sure alcohol's played a role in it. If not, it's just flat out disrespectful behavior nonetheless. But it's sad that we get back to somewhat normalcy. Even starting to get more and more as we speak. And then stuff like this tries to ruin it for us.
Yeah, most definitely. In fact, I think I was reading some articles online about these incidents, and some authors and writers are saying it probably has to do with some of these fact that these players are taking a stand on social justice issues, and they're feeling disrespected, so they're targeting these players because of that.
Well, hopefully, nonetheless, I credit to the law enforcement, to the respective arena personnel to handling it as quick as they did. I'm not for sure how much the NBA got their hands in the cookie jar, so to speak, but nonetheless, power to them. I give them credit where credit's due, and I think they've done well. I think for the most part.
Yeah.
One question I wanted to ask, and on the last episode with you on it, and totally forgot, and we've been talking about it, is Deshaun Watson. Of course, has kind of been quiet since all the rumors and so on and so forth of what Deshaun Watson may have been involved with. I'm not going to sit there and say he was. I wasn't there. If it took place, I wasn't there. If it didn't take place, I still wasn't there. So regardless, I wasn't there. But nonetheless, I know he still doesn't want to be in Houston. With the allegations, we'll put it that way, with these allegations that's towards him, first of all, your opinions on the situation, on the current situation with Deshaun Watson and the multiple women that's being mentioned in this case. Allegation one, I guess a 1B would be, if you're an NFL organization, I mean, a team that's desperate for a quarterback, would you still risk trying to trade for a Pro Bowl quarterback?
Well, if for someone like Deshaun Watson, maybe, but the fact that the number of women that have come forward are the sheer number is concerning. I mean, it's just not one or two. It's not just a small handful. We're talking over almost 24 women have come forward, and I wouldn't necessarily, if I were GM, even if I was most desperate for a quarterback, I would look elsewhere, because for these cases, it will be massive. It's time to just freeze all.
We might have lost David there, technical difficulties, but while we wait for him to get back on, are you there, David?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'm still here. Something went screwy on that.
Yeah, that was weird, because all of a sudden you went dropped. I'm like, this is weird.
Yeah, because I was waiting for you to respond, and then I started talking again, and the next thing, the recording responded. So that's got to be edited out.
Yeah, I'll definitely. Yeah, we'll definitely get that. I'll definitely get that one taken care of. But kind of rephrase in case I don't know how much it did or didn't catch what you were saying. Pretty much rephrase of what may or may not happen if you're an NFL quarterback or NFL organization for Deshaun Watson.
As I was saying, I don't care how desperate you are as a GM, the risk is just too big. With the sheer number of women that have come forward, and the fact that it's starting to look like even a couple of these might be legitimate, and if they're legitimate, his career's done. I mean, you just can't have that in the NFL.
Oh, absolutely.
In recent years, it might, just a couple 50, we can just kind of say, yeah, it happened. Maybe call, but in today's culture, especially after the whole, you just can't have this guy playing. So it's time to freeze all the trade talks. And I think the NFL needs to step in and give Texans a option to where they can, if some of these allegations become true, they can release him from his contract without having to pay, because it's not fair even to the Texans to be paying this guy millions of dollars and he's sitting in jail cell somewhere because he signed a contract. There needs to be a release clause if there isn't already.
Oh, absolutely. And no, I totally agree. I think in this atmosphere or in this situation that the Houston Texans are in, of course, Deshaun Watson as well. But mainly towards the organization of Houston. I think the league has to, Roger Goodell and the NFL, I think they have to go in there. And I totally agree with you. I think they have to give Houston a chance to, hey, here's what, we understand the situation. Here's your options. And I think in a way they should be able, to release him without penalty in regards to cap space, cap, dead cap is what they call it. So it's gonna be interesting nonetheless. I think the more women that's coming out now, and I'm sure there's a lot more that we won't probably ever know. But nonetheless, I think it's a serious matter, and unfortunately, if everything goes as I would assume it would go, and never assume anything, but I think, and as you said, I think Deshaun Watson is done in the NFL.
Yeah, and they haven't said that, the Texans haven't said anything whether he's reported to OTAs or not, but I imagine he hasn't, because I think he's got his attention needs to be focused on this whole thing and get this thing behind him, because if something's happened and it's being overblown, he needs to have a fair chance to defend himself. But then again, if he's done something he shouldn't have, he needs to step up and take responsibility.
Totally agree. 100% with you. Of course, nonetheless, we'll see. I think nonetheless, regardless of what Houston does, I think Deshaun Watson won't be the starting quarterback of 21, unless something just poofs out of nowhere and unexpectedly, or as people would say, money might have been shuffled. You never know. But nonetheless, it's going to be interesting to kind of keep an eye on in Houston, especially with this Deshaun Watson situation. But staying in the NFL, I kind of want to pick your brain, David. And I've talked with Clyde, I've talked with Dan, I might mention it to someone else on the show, but we're looking. It might have been Coach Feeney out in Kentucky, but he, of course, I want to pick your brain. Aaron Rodgers, the situation with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, right before draft, the NFL draft took place last month. Comes out, says whatever, I don't want to be here, blah 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 blah. He speaks his frustration about the front office and his contract and everything else. So here comes Aaron Rodgers. He's 37. He's a reigning league MVP. NFL draft night, I tweeted out and I got a lot of negative towards, oh, you're stupid for that. You're saying that you would give up, why wouldn't you trade for Aaron Rodgers? You got Drew Lock and so on and so forth. My personal opinion, he's 37 years old. I'm not going to give up 3 first-round picks for a guy that may have 2-3 years left and then be put back in the same situation, roughly 2025 at very best. What's your thoughts on the Aaron Rodgers situation from your personal standpoint? And then on top of that, me personally, I don't think he gets traded. But if do you think he'll get traded? If so, where do you think he'll end up come 2021?
Well, the key thing is that he's missed OTAs.
Yep.
He has not reported for OTAs. And now the question is, does the front office of the Packers fine him for that? And if they do, he's more likely to put his foot down and say, okay, this is what's going on. I've seen the news. I've heard the rumors. This is what's happening. And if they start talking, they can't get to agreement, I think he's going to be traded. But the problem is he's got that big contract of his that the team has to pick up. that really limits the number of teams that can do it. What I think is like I said, Denver's one of the top picks. They've got the cap space. They need the quarterback. His fiance is from the Denver area. And I mean, everything points to if he gets traded, he's going to Denver. And Denver has the pieces that they can give up without sacrificing too much. But that being said, you look at Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. Everybody loves Aaron Rodgers. So I think it's more or less if before he gets traded, the Packers front office and him are going to sit down. They're going to try to work it out. And I think they may get something worked out because it would be devastating to Green Bay to lose Aaron Rodgers.
I totally agree. I personally, I'll still stick to, to what I've been saying. I still think Denver. I don't think he gets traded, but if he does, I think unfortunately it's going to be to Denver. But and people are like, well, why would you say? I know Clyde. Him and I argued about it 2 or 3 shows ago, but I just wouldn't give up the humongous pieces. I mean, if you want to throw in a first rounder, okay, well, so be it. 3, that's a lot of future out there. But I do like what George Payton, the general manager of the Denver Broncos, said on draft night, and also just even during leading up to literally as we record right now, is he understands he's got the draft picks. He made wheeling and dealing on I think it was day 2 of the NFL draft. He made a lot of trades that involved draft picks, kind of like a Sam Presti does with the Oklahoma City Thunder. I swear to God, there's more draft picks. I think we have players, but nonetheless, it's he's done a phenomenal job. Of course, I've been reading the articles on Facebook. Here's George Payton's. Literally, he hasn't even become a general manager for a whole year, and we're going to cement his legacy. And it's trading for Aaron Rodgers, and we're going to win a Super Bowl with 2 or 3 or 4, and so be it. Clyde, I'm not going to rephrase what he said, but practically, so you wouldn't trade for a Super Bowl. Okay, let's be honest. We all love our favorite team. We all love the fact that when they win a Super Bowl, if you haven't never experienced it, it's a great feeling. I've felt it 3 times with Denver. But I'll be honest, David. I'm having a really hard time just giving up a future for a 37-year-old quarterback that may or may not. Well, first of all, we don't know if he's going to win a Super Bowl. Second of all, he may not even be healthy in 1 or 2 seasons. He may play and tear his ACL, and that's that. I mean, I get there's so many. It's a business. It's a risk. The reward may be higher at the end of the day, but yes, I understand. I would, yes, it would upgrade. And I told someone on Twitter during this, literally a tyrant of all these people back, coming at me, which I don't mind that. But, yes, I understand. I'm not dumb enough to say I don't want Aaron Rodgers. I just don't want him at the price that they're wanting to practically get in return. I just think that's outrageous.
Most definitely. And, it's one of those things that are you willing to take on this beefy contract? I mean, here's what his contract is, just for reference purposes here. It's a 4-year, $134 million contract, a $57.5 million signing bonus, $33.5 million annual salary, and total guarantees. This is the big one. Total guarantees, no matter who he plays for, if someone picks up his contract, they have to pay him a total of $98.7 million.
Man.
And in 2021, he's projected to pick up $14.7 million in base salary, $11.5 signing bonus, another $6.8 million for being on the roster, a $2.852 restructuring, and another $850,000 just tossed in there under miscellaneous. The team that takes him on will have a cap hit of $37.2 million. if he's traded.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's one of the limits of him being traded, is because of that cap hit.
Well, man, that's a tough one because again, in Denver, I know Denver has the cap space. They won't have much after this if they happen to
Exactly. And then, like you said, he's 37 years old. He's getting up there in years. I mean, Tom Brady's, I think part bionic in him, because there's no reason that a quarterback should be that good, past 40. I mean, you look at Brett Favre, the old gunslinger. When he hit 40 in his last couple of years, the Vikings, he lost his throwing ability. He lost his scrambling. I mean, he's lost everything. Tom Brady's just going the opposite direction. It's ridiculous. But it's that risk of his age. If he was a few years younger, there might be a few more teams willing to take that cap hit. But because he's 37 and he's taken a few hits in his career, I think it's a little too risky for most teams.
Well, I mean, again, I'm not saying. I'm keeping a close eye on the OTAs. I mean, people are like, it's just the OTAs. I get it. It's not meaningful football. It's not whatever. I like it. It's football. I mean, we're less than 100 days. I think we're at 96 now or something like that. But I like what Denver's seen. Teddy Bridgewater's looking good. Drew Lock, I like his zip on his ball. I know he's been picked off a few times, which, whatever. But, I know Clyde said he's going to listen to the show once it gets released, and that's perfectly fine. But I'm sorry, Clyde, and everybody else that's out there listening. I wouldn't sell the farm for a quarterback that is going to sink you in the cap space hole. And on top of that, who may or may not win you another Super Bowl, or may not. Look at the bright side, not really bright side, but look at the same thing. He may do the same thing he's doing to Green Bay, to Denver, or to San Francisco, or whoever that feels the need to go for him and wants out. I mean, I just think he should retire. Well, he should continue to play. I mean, if he's so worried about Jeopardy, I say retire and go be the Jeopardy's host, and Godspeed.
Yep. And I think that's one of the great things. I mean, and he may have, and the thing is, though, is Jeopardy doesn't film year round. They only film a week of shows in a day, and their filming schedule is like 4 or 5 months. So, I mean, he could easily do that in the off season if he so wanted to.
And that's true. Yeah.
The other thing is there would be appearances. I mean, look at the late Alex Trebek did. He made appearances all over when he wasn't filming.
Yep.
And there may have to be some things that they may want to do if he's going to be the new host that he may not be able to do because he's got football games going on, because he's not be able to travel the world and go do other appearances, because you just can't. It's not as simple as play football during football season and then we'll film in the off season. It's a year-round gig.
Well, it's going to be interesting nonetheless. I know rumors keep going. Of course, Julio Jones, now he wants out of Atlanta and his $36 million contract. And I like Julio. He's one of the best in the league. I'm not all for Denver. And, of course, Denver's always mentioned for everything, which, whatever. I don't think Denver goes after him. In your scenario, I mentioned Tennessee. I think Dan said Seattle, but that's fine. Where do you think he lands, if you have an idea of potentially going anywhere? And that's if he does. I would love to see him and Kyle Pitts.
I would love to see
that. Would be a humongous duo, but I get everybody wants to win, but not all the time are you going to win.
Yeah, one of the Atlanta Falcons front office folks put their foot down and said, we're not trading him unless we get a first-round pick. And then they may not trade him until July. And I think, honestly, the best fit for him might be Seattle. I think Seattle would be a good fit for him.
I could see Seattle. I know Dan and I talked about that last night. Russ is getting up there in age. He's got a lot more farther down the road still left to go than per se a Tom Brady. Even though I agree with you, Tom Brady's bionic, and I still don't think he's human. But Tom Brady's still playing great football at 42 or whatever how old he is now. Aaron Rodgers, he's 37, maybe 38 by now, I'm sure. Ben Roethlisberger, I think his playing days are done. But you look at Seattle, and Russell Wilson wants to win. I mean, everybody wants to win. Let's just throw that out there. I like how he says, "Oh, Russell wants to win." Well, so does I'm sure Drew Lock, and so does Patrick Mahomes, and Justin Herbert out at Los Angeles. Well, I always keep saying it's San Diego Chargers, but the LA Chargers and Matthew Stafford now with the LA Rams. I mean, everybody wants to win. Unfortunately, not everybody's had the glorious times of winning, aka Matthew Stafford with Detroit. But nonetheless, we get everybody wants to win. But that would be a nice duo with Julio, DK Metcalf. I know I'm missing Tyler Lockett. I still can't believe he's still playing in the league. I still remember him from Kansas State.
Isn't Golden Tate still with the Seahawks?
I think he is. I may be wrong, but I think he still is.
Yeah. So if he's still with them, then you can throw him in the mix. I mean, he's not one of the high-profile receivers, but he's pretty good.
No, they got a heck of a team. The funny part is, and I always give Dan and Ernie Seattle. I got another Seattle fan I'm trying to get on. Her husband or diehard Seattle fan. But what's funny is we got Seattle, who the offensive line has been the biggest issue, and as we all know, it doesn't matter if you're Baker Mayfield or if you're Patrick Mahomes, and he found that out in the Super Bowl this past season. You don't have an offensive line blocking you, you're as good as dead. Because I mean, you're not gonna make the throws. You're not gonna make the runs. Patrick Mahomes found that out. The Tampa Bay defensive line just tore him apart. Well, and that O line as well. But Denver knows by example. Drew Lock really knows that by example. If you don't have an offensive line, you're not going to win. That's just all there's to it. But we're not going to move down the ball. Julio, what I like about Julio, you don't hear much from him off the field. Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I might have missed a few stories if he has been. I just think Julio's. I just really want to see Kyle Pitts and Julio Jones together. I just want to see that.
Yeah, that would be something.
Man.
Yeah. And the other thing is Seattle, if it's a first round pick that Atlanta wants, Seattle can't do that. They don't have a pick that they can give up.
No.
But what they can do is they can give up a second rounder and a proven defensive player, which is what the Falcons desperately need right now. They could, one of the trade scenarios I'm looking at here is the Seahawks send a 2022 second round pick and Quandre Diggs to the Falcons for Julio Jones. And Diggs is only a $6.1 million cap hit. And he could team with Duron Harmon and Richard Grant to transform Atlanta's safety group, which is about as bad as Kansas City's offensive line.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at the offensive. A lot of people just don't give credit to the big boys. I mean, they play a huge factor. A lot of why Denver. I mean, I can speak for Denver, but why do I always say Denver? Well, unfortunately, my team experienced the most.
Yeah, exactly.
When you don't have an offensive line, it doesn't matter who your quarterback is. You're not going to run the ball very well. You're definitely not going to pass the ball because you can't get the ball out of your hands quick enough to even move the ball downfield.
Right. So, you only have a couple of seconds to get the ball in. You have time to look downfield and see what's going on.
So, I mean, and that's where, and it leads me to Drew Lock. And of course, I got, not an argument, but a friendly argument with Clyde. And not just Clyde. I shouldn't always pick on him. But with practically everyone else. Here's why I think we shouldn't give up on Drew Lock just yet. First of all, last year was a horrendous year for Denver. Let's say Oklahoma. For Denver, in regards to injuries, you lose, well, Jawan James at right tackle. Your offensive line was young, so they're kind of in and out. You weren't at the time. You weren't for sure with Garrett Bowles at left. You got Cortland Sutton. He was out for the whole year. Noah Fant was injury prone throughout the season. Tim Patrick hit and miss. Deshaun Hamilton hit and miss. KJ whatever. Jerry had his moments at times, and he's a rookie, so that's going to happen. Did he drop a lot of footballs? Yes, he did. Did he catch a lot of football? Yes, he did. His speed really is amazing, which I'll give that kid credit. I have nothing against Jerry Jeudy. He was a rookie, whatever. Running game has been an issue for quite a while, but you injury prone offensively. Drew Lock got injured, I think, against Pittsburgh week 2. Okay, so you don't have, again, I get it. Well, he's never on the field. Okay, I get it's a business. He flashed and dashed in 2019. He flashed and dashed 4-1, only lost to Kansas City, who eventually went on and won the Super Bowl. That's not a bad resume. Last year, okay, he had his flashes, he had his dashes. Okay. I hate, and it's a business, and Cleveland knows by example, is everybody's out to kill the GOAT, everybody's out to hang someone in a matter of seconds. And yes, I do agree with what Clyde said on, might have been last week's show, was, yeah, we did get spoiled. We got John Elway. We had some decent years with Jake Plummer. We had Brian Griese was okay. Then we got Peyton Manning. Yeah, ever since then, it's been horrendous. I get it. I still like his swag. I like Drew Lock's swag. I say give the kid one more chance. I say give him one more year.
Yeah, exactly, and see what he can do. Get him some support, offensive line and a couple of good wide receivers, and see what he can do. And then maybe if things don't work out, then say, okay, but you just can't say, well, that didn't work out when you haven't got a fair chance. You're stacking the odds against him and setting him up to fail.
Absolutely, and next year if we don't have many injuries, I mean, I understand it's going to have some bumps and grinds. That's part of the game. But if we go through a whole 17-game season and not many injuries, and he's average, then okay. I lift my hand and say, hey, I was incorrect. He's obviously not a quarterback. I'm not going to sit here and say the next quarterback in the 2022 draft is anything going to be any good. I know Spencer Rattler's name's being out. I don't think he's – now, I will say this about Spencer Rattler. He's a heck of a quarterback at Oklahoma. I know I like reading these way, way too early NFL mock drafts, but the fact that he's being mentioned to come out early is surprising. I don't think he's ready.
Yeah, I don't think he's ready either.
But nonetheless, we'll see. Your thoughts? I don't know. Have you watched much of the NBA playoffs so far, David?
Not really. I haven't really watched it, but I've been kind of keeping tabs on it through ESPN app and a few other news stories like that. And I really have time to sit back and watch a game, although I'm probably going to turn on the second half of the Portland-Denver series because that looks like it's going to be a popcorn affair, if you know what I mean.
Well, I'm with you too. I haven't watched a single ounce of NBA playoffs. I just unfortunately been busy, but no, I've been keeping up. Of course, the ESPN app, Bleacher Report app, so on and so forth. But I will bring up a certain team that many people do and don't like. It's the Los Angeles Lakers. Of course, they're in do and die mode tonight with Phoenix, which I love is hilarious. Because a lot of people, even though Phoenix has a 1 seed, really had no chance, according to a lot of these people, to win the series, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
But let's say, Anthony Davis. I believe from what I just saw during the recording, he's going to play tonight in Game 6. Let's say he does, but LeBron plays, and everybody else still plays, and the Lakers lose. Dan says retire. I don't know how old LeBron is. I know he's in his mid-30s. I don't know how old he is, but if LeBron loses, is this, and it's a tough one because a lot of, I've seen a lot of players go into the 40s and still do it. Could this be the beginning of the end of LeBron?
I think so. It could be because you remember, he came right out of high school. He was one of the last players to come right out of high school because shortly after he came out, NBA instituted the 1 gap year where you have to have at least 1 year between your last game of high school and your first game in the NBA. And so I think it's because of that. And he's been all over the map. He's been to Cleveland twice. He's been to Miami. This is his third team. And he's 36. He's just about 6 months younger than my sister is. So he's been playing for almost 20 years because he came out of high school. So he started in the NBA when he was 18. He's been playing for almost 20 years. And basketball is one of the most demanding sports out there because, you're constantly running up and down the court. That in hockey, you're always up and down. You're not taking breaks. You're not sitting down. You're not, slow the pace down a little bit. It's come and go, come and go. And he's had some injury issues over the last few years. And so he's not exactly, invincible. And I think if he's going to take a look at this offseason, I think it depends on how the offseason goes and how he can rehab from these injuries he suffered before he makes a decision.
I agree. I know a lot of people, think of LeBron as so, and I will still repeat what I said last night to Dan. And I do agree. I like LeBron. I still think Michael Jordan is the best of all time. Regardless, I'm sorry, the 6-0 record in the NBA Finals is going to top whatever LeBron James does. That's just my personal opinion. However, what LeBron James has done for the game is great. I still think he's behind Kobe. I still think he's behind Michael. That's just my opinion. We can fight back and forth with Kobe's 1, Jordan's 2.
Yeah.
1, Kobe 2, whatever. That's cool. I don't think LeBron passes them. And you're going to have
No.
lovers that say, oh, he's the best of all time. Okay, well, cool. I respect that. I'm not going to sit there and say you're a moron. I may disagree with it, but, it's fun. And that's what I like about sports is you're supposed to respect everybody's decision regardless and just kind of have a nice argument. Sometimes, unfortunately, you do have your lovely people out there that choose to go on the deep end, and that's fine too. But nonetheless, no, I think I wish LeBron would stay out of the politics realm. I wish he would stay out of the, and I'm not going to bring much up of it because it's a touchy subject, but LeBron, I'm just going to say this, he just needs to stick to playing basketball.
Yeah.
Let whatever else on the sideline that really doesn't affect you, let that play out and move from there. Whether or not he does it, I doubt it. But hey,
and I think that's one of the things that kind of limits his legacy is this fact that he's kind of chosen to blur that line between playing the game and being an activist. There's nothing wrong with being an activist for fighting for a cause that you believe in. There's nothing wrong with that. I support him fighting for what he believes is right. Yep. But there's a time to do that, and blurring that line makes fans kind of like, I don't like the way they're doing that. It's very, like I said, it's very touching in today's world. It's, it's very trigger. I mean, you can kill 20 minutes without even realizing it, talking politics and other things, because everyone's got an opinion. I think it's just they've become more bold in making that opinion. Mm-hmm. But if you look at Kobe and Michael, they didn't, in MJ, they didn't do that. They knew when it was game time, they stayed on the court. They did what they needed to do, and they let their athleticism do the talking. They didn't, blur the line between sports and politics.
No, I agree. I have nothing wrong with people fighting for what they believe in. I 100% support them, regardless if I do or don't believe in whatever they're fighting for. But I get LeBron's a huge figure, role model, especially to many people, and that's perfectly fine. But no, it's gonna be interesting. I think we talked new faces, and it kind of stayed in the NBA. Trae Young looked amazing in his first career appearance in the NBA playoffs. I don't think they made it last year. I don't think. But give it out to Trae Young. Norman North High School, I believe.
Norman North High School, University of Oklahoma,
and University of Oklahoma, and
top 5 draft pick with the Hawks.
Yep. Congrats to him, and I hope he does well in the second round.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he's now New York's favorite villain. So it's going to be an interesting to watch. I mean, I'm not a Knicks guy, but
I'm not either.
No, but I think it's interesting to watch. I mean, and that franchise has been kind of toiling in mediocrity for the last few years, and I think it's time. I think it'd be great if they could get back into it and then have a rivalry, with the Hawks and Trae Young, and it could really ignite people to tune into basketball again. Because if you remember basketball last year, they're the ones that kind of started this whole social justice movement, and fans got turned off from it.
Yep.
And in fact, I know a couple of people personally who did not renew their tickets with the Thunder, season tickets with the Thunder, because of the social justice issues. Just their opinions, their right to do that.
Of course.
And I think if the fans are like, wait a minute, this is interesting, I might get back into basketball. They could do both well for the NBA as far as viewership is concerned, because people are going to tune in to watch Trae Young versus the Knicks, and it should be entertaining basketball.
Well, I give credit to Trae Young. Well, really the whole entire Atlanta team. I thought they played well, of course, winning that series. What's funny is watching the game winner or darn near close to it. I think it was game 1 or 2. I can't remember. But it reminded me so much, and I don't want people out there, listeners out there, so they kind of know why I feel what I feel about the NBA. Growing up, I was not an NBA fan. My dad was. He was a diehard New York Knicks fan. Obviously now, unfortunately, his health is declining, so he doesn't care if the Knicks would have won the NBA championship. He would probably thought that was cool. He just doesn't care. But growing up, it was New York Knicks. Allen Houston, Patrick Ewing, Latrell Sprewell, Larry Johnson, Charlie Ward. I know I'm missing Marcus Camby. I mean, list goes on and on. He always remembers back in the 60s and somewhat of the 60s, 70s, so on and so forth. But what's funny is when Trae Young hit the game winner, I think it was game 1, reminded me so much of when Reggie Miller always was a thorn to the Knicks' side.
Yeah. It was quite the thing to be in with the Knicks. It's just, they'd be like, okay, we're playing Indiana. Well, can we stop Reggie? No. Well, poop. That's basically what Knicks fans did, because it was just like, we got to put up with Reggie Miller.
But no, I think Trae Young will. I think he'll continue to do well in the NBA. I don't know who he gets matched up with. I don't know who he gets matched up with in the second round, but I'm sure that nonetheless he'll do well. Is it me though, or can Trae Young practically make a basket from anywhere on the court?
I don't know. I mean, he's starting to turn into Steph Curry again. It's like, I mean, and what's going to be entertaining is if Golden State can get their pieces together and Atlanta can get some more momentum built up from experience in the playoffs, and it's Trae Young versus Steph Curry. That will be an entertaining finals matchup, because you're going to talk about two players that can just basically turn the game of horse. Anything you can do, I can do better.
Yep.
And that's going to be make for some, and that may be the catalyst that the NBA needs to get the viewerships back up, because fans I think it'll be entertaining to watch. So I'm excited about it.
No, I'm not knocking it. But no, Speaking last thing on the NBA, I'll put out this way. We'll stay local, Oklahoma City. I don't know many players coming out of the college, but unfortunately, I'll be honest with you. This past college basketball season, up until the March Madness, I just was not following very closely, so on and so forth. Of course, Oklahoma, they didn't fare too well as many expected, but won the first match. I forgot who they beat. Second one, of course, losing to Gonzaga, which I saw that coming. But going to Oklahoma City, how long, from your standpoint? I think I told someone wasn't even podcast related. I told them that we'll probably be back in the playoffs, looking at the 23-24 season. What from your standpoint and where the current team is? Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen in free agency, if anything's going to happen. But we don't know anything down the future. But the current standpoint, when do you think we'll be back in this playoff mode? Not saying we're going to make it to the Western Conference Finals or anything, just playoffs. How far or how soon do you think we are from being back in the playoffs?
Well, the key is going to be how we do in the draft lottery. We've got that one game, the final game of the season against the Clippers, which we ended up winning, which was a bit of a startle to me. I told you last time we spoke that I didn't see the Thunder winning another game the rest of the season. They ended up winning like 3 more games. It ended up costing them because of the way the records were, and they ended up playing tie with winning percentages and the way tiebreakers work. So they went from having the 4th best odds to having the 7th best odds to win the number 1 draft pick. If they don't get a top 5 pick, I think they tank again, because they need a top 5 caliber player that they can build around. And so I think if they don't get a top 5 pick, they may just say, we're going to keep most of the players now. We may win a few more games because we're going to have more experience. But if they get a top 5 pick, I think they make the playoffs this next season, 2021, 2022. If they don't, I think we might one more year further back in the postseason contention.
I could see that. I got to call someone down there, but no, it's I'll be glad to when we go back to the Thunder games. That's gonna be nice.
It is.
That's gonna be amazing. But if all the listeners out there,
and it was way after they of course they split the season in half.
Yep.
And after the second half, the Thunder announced that, even though other teams are allowing fans back in, they wouldn't. And when I saw one, I said, hey, that's great, because you go down there in a Thunder game, it's quite the experience. And, and they realized that people didn't want to, especially with the way the team was performing, they didn't want fans paying money for tickets, parking, gas, or Ubers, where to get to the game, and then only basically smooth the experience at home, because you're not going to be able to interact with anything, any food. You'll have to order through the app. It's contactless, and it wouldn't be the experience that people have when they normally go to a Thunder game. So kudos to the Thunder for realizing that and saying, hey, we're not going to have fans have to have bad experience. Now we're just going to keep our doors shut until next year, when, we're a better chance of having full capacity. And I think they're going to have full capacity next year. Oklahoma Sooners announced they're having full capacity. Oklahoma State, I think, announced that. So I think it's going to be great for the fans to get back into it next year.
Totally agree. And all the listeners out there, if you have not visited what currently is the Chesapeake Energy Arena, I do not know what it's going to be for next year, if it's going to be even close to it. I've heard Paycom is an option. I don't know what the leading candidates are, but for now, we'll call it the Chesapeake Energy Arena. Of course, that's going to be changing sometime this year, if not next year. But definitely check out that arena. I swear, I'm going to be biased. I've been to Dallas, but our fan base is more, I shouldn't say a college atmosphere, but the atmosphere of it is like Cameron Hall Indoor Stadium and Duke. These fans, they're not jumping up and down. I'm not saying that, but they're passionate. This group of fans that we have down here in Oklahoma City, they're one of a kind, and they're the most loudest I've ever been into an arena, period, regardless if it's I
Yeah,
remember.
it's not called Wild City for nothing.
No, exactly, and I remember. I mean, attended. I rented football games with the Yard Dogs, and you can't compare the two, but the fan base nonetheless is there. Speaking of coaches, real quick, Coach K is going to retire at the end of this season. Looking back, for 42 years, I think it's going to finally end up being, if not 43, if you include this year. I don't know if the 42 is including the 21-22 season, or if it's going to be 43. But regardless, 42, 43 doesn't matter. That's a humongous 4 decades worth of coaching at one spot, which is impressive in itself. Because there's been some Duke teams, including this year's team, that just wasn't very good. Um, Reflect on Coach K, one of the best. I know Duke's already named a head coach. I don't know much about him. I know he's an assistant. Hopefully he'll do well. I don't know much about him, but I know it's hard shoes to fill regardless. Real quick, David, I want to kind of touch up on spring football. What's your thoughts on, of course, now Roy Williams is retiring in North Carolina. Bill Self, I think you and I did talk about that lifelong contract. I don't know how long he's got, but now you're seeing these old timers are starting to step down, step away, retire, and rightfully so. You know, they've done a phenomenal job as well. Roy Williams for sure as well. From your standpoint, where would you rank Coach K in regards to college basketball coaching?
Well, you have to, as far as all time, it's a matter of debate. I would rate him in the top small handful of coaches all time. I would put up there with his name's escaped me. I think it was Rupp from Kentucky. And then of course you've got John Wooden, the greatest coach of all time at UCLA. But then you have different eras of basketball. You know, you can't. It's comparing apples to oranges at this point because the game's changing, and that's one of the reasons that he cited in his retirement. He said, "I'm not doing it because the game's changing. I do it because I want to be a family. I've been at this for decades, and I think it's he's one of the greatest coaches. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the NCAA, names a Coach of the Year award after it. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they do that. I know that John Wooden awards the best player, so it would make sense that Coach K is the award for Coach of the Year. I wouldn't be surprised if that does that, and it's one of his legacies. I mean, because I remember years ago when I was a young boy visiting my grandparents, I read an article on him when he first came to Duke, and people were like, "How do you say his name?" And more importantly, how do you spell it? So they started calling him Coach K, and it just stuck.
Yep.
So I think he's a legendary coach nonetheless, and I think it'd be great because it's someone else to take the reins and do what and maybe continue to lead Duke to where thing. And it may be what's happened at Oklahoma with Bob Stoops, suddenly stepping down. No one saw that coming, and then they had a coaching waiting in Lincoln Riley. And promoting from within is one of the best things you can do when it comes to sports teams because they're always familiar with the system. They can just continue it on, and instead of having to make a bunch of changes, and the players not having to adjust to new coach, they can say, "Okay, well, we know this guy because he's there."
Totally agree. And of course, Lincoln Riley's done a phenomenal job at Oklahoma. I expect him, unless something weird happens, he should be here many years down the road as well as Oklahoma. You know, it's funny just growing up, it was, obviously I wasn't athletic in basketball. Could I shoot a 3-pointer? Yeah, but are you going to put me on a starting lineup? No, not really. But bench, yeah, I may play. I may be kind of like, I can't think of his name, that would play from Duke, that was on our Kyle, what was his name? He came from Duke. He was on our bench. Anyway, whoever, I don't know. Anyway, I may play a minute, 2 minutes. You always see those stats. Average 4 minutes a game, not even a rebound, 1/10 of a rebound. I'm like, okay, how you get a 10th in there, but sure, we'll go with that. But anyway, it's funny, even though I'm 33, it's weird seeing all these now coaches. It's like, man, these guys been around forever, and of course we grow up. But I do wish, and hopefully Coach K can win one more. I mean, that would be cool for his way out. But I don't know how talent wise they are and how deep they are. So it is Duke. I do know expectations there are always high, just like it is on those kind of basketball universities. So, but last topic, David, is spring football. Not many people, I don't think, that I know personally, has mentioned it. Uh, this league was around way before my time. But I do remember my dad mentioned about the Oklahoma Outlaws. The USFL is coming back spring of 22, the United States Football League. I'm actually excited for it, not just because it's football, but
Yeah,
maybe Oklahoma City has a chance for a spring football league team.
maybe they do, and that's one of the things that I was hoping you would mention because I saw it today. I saw it today, and I was thinking, hey, this is pretty cool.
Yep.
And sure enough, I looked at it and I thought, hey, this is going to be really good. And what really neat is that they're using the same logo they've had during the 80s. They haven't announced cities and teams and names and all that, but they've retained the rights to the original 8 that were there. And of course, they actually, unlike the Alliance of American Football that was in 2019, and then the XFL, which declared bankruptcy because of the pandemic, they couldn't even finish their first season, which was sad because they were doing pretty good. They survived for 3 years because they realized they couldn't compete with the NFL. Rather, they went to complement the NFL and play, again, spring football. But then their demise began when then owner Donald Trump, we all know what happened with him. He owned the team, the New Jersey Outlaws, and he wanted to move the schedule to the fall to compete with the NFL, and it went belly quickly because the NFL, you can't compete with them. They're a monopoly. They're the only professional sports league that's a monopoly. You look at the NBA, they've got the G League. Minor League Baseball, we have a minor league baseball team in OKC, and it's been around for decades because they complement one another. They don't compete. The NFL, because of there's only not like a minor league football league, they don't have competition, and they're one of the biggest money making leagues out there. So you kind of compete with them, you're going to fail, and so it's important that you don't compete with the NFL. But I think the USFL has a great chance if they've seen what the AAF and the XFL have done. They can learn from that, and I think if they do it right, we could see, we could have a full, 10, 15, maybe even 16 team league in a few years because they've done things the right way. So I'm very excited about it. I think Oklahoma could support a USFL team, and and I'm excited about who they might have. You might have players that might not get drafted in the NFL, or old stars that are falling off, and they have another chance to show themselves. But you can go out and watch some great players for having a shot at a couple $100 for a ticket.
Well, I do know one thing, and I was actually sitting in my car this morning, about to walk into work. When I actually saw the tweet, I wasn't even really remotely scrolling. It just popped up. USFL returning spring 22. I'm like, this is awesome. Now we understand here in America. I know there's listeners out there that is beyond the borders of the United States that listen in. Here in America, we haven't had very much success when it comes to spring football. Don't really know why. That's the missing link, so to speak. The XFL back in, what was it, 2001 or something like that?
2001, and it was actually because it wasn't a football league; it was entertainment.
Well, exactly,
quickly grew older than what happened. Like, and then AAF, they had some financial issues that no one knew about until it folded. They tried to sweep it under the rug. It didn't work, and then it belly up. And then, of course, the XFL, the new XFL rather, COVID kind of put the nail in its coffin because they had to pause their season and they didn't have the ability to fall back on things and wait, so as a new league. So I think it's just I think it can be a success, but you have to tread carefully and not compete with the NFL.
Absolutely. And yeah, exactly. I mean, the XFL 1.0, I remember watching that. That was a joke. You practically ran for the football. The cheerleaders were, you got in the locker rooms, and some of it was cool. Some of it was, I really didn't give a rat's rear end. I mean, 2001, I was in the 7th grade. So I really didn't care about, as much as I love women, I didn't really care about the cheerleaders. I want to see football.
Yeah,
I mean, that's all I cared about.
I mean, at that time, in 2001, I mean, you and I think about the same age.
Yeah.
Well, I was at my grandparents. My grandparents were very conservative, and so they were letting me, they want to watch it, and they watched it with me to make sure I wasn't,
Yep.
checking something out, And
oh, yes.
About 5 minutes into it, they turn it off, and I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, yeah. So I think the XFL 2.0 is a lot better, and of course, Dwayne Johnson, formerly known as The Rock, I think he's doing great. He knows he has connections with the company that bought it is called Redbird Capital, that bought it right before it went to auction. And I think that they're working on an agreement to with the CFL, the Canadian Football League. And I think what they're doing is they're going to be basically they're up and running their minor leagues, if you will. They haven't really announced it, but that's what I'm reading into. And they're basically going to say, hey, we're going to enter contracts or agreements rather with each of the CFL teams. So each of the XFL teams are going to have an affiliate in the CFL. So if it's going to be like minor league baseball, where they're going to send teams down here to reassign for rehab assignments or improve the quality of their game. And if that's the case, then I think they're going to have to adopt the same rule book, because the rules are a little bit different from our version of American football in the CFL. I mean, the goalposts in front of the end zone versus being at the back of the end zone. And there's certain rules about how you have to, as far as extra points and all that. So I'm excited about it. And I think it'd be great to have football year round and not just have to wait for the fall.
Well, I know one thing, whether or not the XFL, technically my version, I call it 3.0, even though technically you can go 2.0 since COVID-19, let's say COVID-20, since COVID-19 kind of put the nail in the coffin. I know the ratings were I know in the middle of the season, regardless, I still think at least would have made the season, or at least through the playoffs. I don't know if there would have been a second season or not. Of course, in spring league, you have the alliance, which it actually wasn't a bad product. Horrible management from what I read. I know there's another league, the UFL, many years ago. I didn't get into that at all. But I know spring football hasn't really thrived, but I think I'm not going to sit here and say the USFL will, but I think if it's done right, which I don't know who's behind it, but I think if it's done right, you get the right location. And I'm hoping, I'm not going to sit there and say that they're going to go literally grab the same teams back from the 1980s and put them back. I don't think that's going to happen. But if they're smart about their locations, such as St. Louis, such as, I still think, I'm going to be biased, but Oklahoma City. I think if you're strategic where football really is the brand, Alabama, for example, Tuscaloosa, Auburn, I mean, Birmingham.
Exactly. You don't go in the South where you've got Atlanta. Let's say, okay, I kind of think Tennessee is still part of the South. So you've got Tennessee Titans, Carolina Panthers, Atlanta Falcons, Miami Dolphins, and Jacksonville Jaguars. That's it for the South as far as football teams. Mississippi and Alabama are football hotbeds, and of course everyone knows about Texas and its football, and it's a love addiction with football. And you go down there and look at some of the high school stadiums, you're like, goodness gracious, where are we? And but like I said, if they're smart about where they put these teams, and if they have to have and I think what they're wanting to do is one of the most important things, and this is my opinion about this, is they need to find cities that have the infrastructure already in place, with the stadium ready to go, or that they can get it done quickly, because they don't need to go to the city and have to work out with the city and its taxpayers about building a brand new state-of-the-art stadium. Have one that's ready to go and that they can move into, and that way these teams can get established and get going, versus having to wait and we're going to award a franchise to you, but now we can't award it because you guys won't have a stadium ready. So I think that they have to get the core teams where their stadiums, where there's infrastructure, where the fans are ready to go, and then expand from there.
Oh, I totally agree. I think the USFL, I'm actually excited. I think I followed them now on Twitter just to kind of keep up with what they're going to do. But, I'm looking forward to it. I hope it thrives. I hope I like the XFL. I thought the 2.0 was a little bit better than some, but hopefully, regardless if they do merge with Canadian Football League, I have watched some CFL action. Don't know much about the rules. Same old, but it feels wider, longer, so on and so forth. But nonetheless, I'm excited for the USFL. Really crossing my fingers that we can land a team, because now where will they play? I don't know. Spring of 22, obviously the new stadium's not going to be remotely. I don't think they even broke ground yet on that thing for downtown. But if they happen to land, what would you say, Taft Stadium?
I would say Taft Stadium would be ideal, but the other issue is, like I said, about infrastructure is parking. I don't know if you've ever been to an energy game, but there's not
I've been
very
to
much parking.
a few, but there's not much parking.
Yeah, exactly, and that's going to be a turnoff for fans. So
what about Bishop McGuinness's high school?
Bishop McGuinness might be better. They have a bit more parking, and it's right there on the freeway, so you can see it right there from the
I would
freeway.
say Norman, but we know how OU parking is. It's not the greatest.
No, it's not, and I think that's one of the things about it. I mean, if Oklahoma does get in a USFL team, I think they'll have to wait a couple of years and wait, because like I said, that through the infrastructure about where people can go, the stadium, and getting to and in and out of the stadium. And, because fans are going to go there, and then, they're going to spend 3 hours in the game, another 2 hours in traffic. They're not going to say, well, I'm not going to come back here. And so you need fans to return. We need people that are going to support the team no matter what. So I'm excited about it. It's promising, and we're just going to have to play the waiting game and see.
Well, exactly. And, I would say the Bricktown Ballpark, but unfortunately, I don't know. First of all, if we can even theoretically put is it long enough for a football field? Do we even know that?
I don't even know what the dimensions are, and
I don't either.
Well, I don't. I mean, it and you would have to be the cost of converting it, versus having to do it. Look at what I think. You look at what was happening in Oakland at the O.Co Coliseum. Where they're having to convert the field from the football field to the baseball stadium and back. I remember watching Raiders games, and there'd be a big old swab of dirt right in the middle of the field because they're playing on a baseball stadium. And then, if you're running as a receiver or as a defender, you're running and you go from grass to dirt to grass, it messes up your traction and your mobility because you're going from different surfaces. So I think a football stadium would be better, and not trying to convert anything unless it's indoor, which you can control the environment from that.
Hey, indoor football. I wish we would have a team back in that. I do miss indoor football. But last note, Major League Baseball, potential expanding. I know I just said it was the last topic, but I want to bring it up real quick. We're talking about Oklahoma City. Major League Baseball, of course, sounds like the Oakland A's is out here in the near future. Portland, Las Vegas is rumored to be the top two landing spots. I know back in 2006, the Florida Marlins at the time, which is now the Miami Marlins, rumored if they don't get the fan base, stadium, all this, blah, 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 blah. Oklahoma City was being rumored, and it was, courtesy of ESPN.com. If you want to look it up, it's old. It's about 2006, I believe. But anyway, 05, 06. But anyway, do we see of course, the A's are going to be out regardless. where do you think? I say Las Vegas. Unfortunately, even the Portland would be a better option. But with everything going to Las Vegas, I think Las Vegas gets it. Could we or do we not? I don't. I think it would be a good market. I don't think we're big enough just yet. Could we see Major League Baseball, MLB to Oklahoma City, or are we just not going to be there, or just not there yet?
I don't think we're there yet, because of, like I said, it has to do with the infrastructure. We don't have a stadium. Bricktown Ballpark only holds, I think, 12,000 people at its capacity. The smallest capacity for Major League Baseball is Tropicana Field in Tampa Bay, and that's 31,000. That's basically time and a half times big of what Bricktown Ballpark is. And Major League Baseball is not going to put a team where there's not a stadium that can support it. And I'm not sure Oklahoma City's about to, take the bite for building another stadium on the other side of town
Oh no.
And then taxpayers aren't going to pay for it. So I think Oklahoma City, as much as I'd love to see it, and much as when you look at the Thunder, everybody was like, well, Oklahoma City can't support a team. And in 3 years, we were in the NBA conference finals, and now we've got one of the most passionate fan bases out there. And but I honestly think this, you and I were even, our grandparents weren't even out of high school when this was going on, but in the 1940s, St. Louis had two teams, the Cardinals and the Browns, and they both played at a stadium called Sportsman's Park. And I honestly think if the Oakland A's move, I would love to see them in St. Louis. I'd love to see St. Louis have two teams. I think they could support it, and you could leave them in the American League and then have, interleague matchups between the St. Louis and call it the Gateway Series or something,
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That'd be pretty nice.
Yeah.
I know my dad, Lord willing, he'd be around. If let's play devil's advocate, if that was to happen, Lord willing, he'll be around because I know his health is on a decline pretty bad. But, I know that if that was to happen, I'm sure I think he got some strength left in him that could make a trip to go see the Oakland A's before he was to pass away.
Yeah. I mean, and they could keep the nickname, the St. Louis Athletics. I mean, that's just one of those old school names that gives it that nostalgic feel that everybody loves.
Totally agree, and I'm looking forward to this USFL. Definitely, I think I signed up for an email alert, so hopefully they will be communicating pretty well. But David, as always, I'm going to flip, and we'll try to. I always say it, and I'll get sidetracked. I'm going to say it, and then obviously I'm going to jokingly say it, but it seems like when I do say the opposite, it goes literally the opposite. I'm not going to text you tomorrow, but maybe I won't be as busy if I say it that way. No, I'm kidding. I'll text you tomorrow. I got some ideas on the show I want you to be involved with, so I'll quote unquote not text you. Hopefully.
You reach out to me whenever you can, and I know you're very busy between work and this, so whenever you get a moment, you'll reach out and we'll touch base and get some things going. So it's been great having me on.
Hey, David, it's always a pleasure. You've been Dave as well. I'll put his information on the description once the episode gets released as well. As always, guys, it's been a pleasure. David, thank you again for coming on. You guys are listening to the Air Raid Attack podcast. Listen and follow the show on Twitter at @AirRaid_podcast. My personal Twitter, On Air with Mike. And I will see you all next week.